We're joined by Jacob Rees-Mogg, Chair of the European Research Group, Brexit supporting Tory MPs of course, and Sarah Wollaston, Chair of the Health Select Committee, who's joining us from Exeter and who backed Remain. Sarah Wollaston, if I can start with you. Mr Rees-Mogg has sent this letter to Conservative associations saying they should chuck Chequers. What do you make of that?
Well, I think it's really disappointing, and particularly considering the ERG effectively tabled motions that would critically undermine the deal in any case, and are now doing so direct to associations and to Conservative colleagues. And what Jacob needs to do is look at the technical notices that have been published today, and this is just the first tranche, because they set out the sheer scale of the complexity that is going to be unleashed and all the unintended consequences and problems that will come with it. And we absolutely have to avoid a no deal if we possibly can.
Well, you penned that letter, you've tried to influence the debate clearly, but you've also heard from the experts earlier in the programme. Are you not making a no deal Brexit more likely by the action you took in writing to associations, making compromise within the party harder?
No, I think the compromise within the party was set out by the Prime Minister at the Mansion House speech, and that was something that both sides of the party were willing to accept and the country was willing to accept. The problem with Chequers is that it means not leaving the European Union, remaining subject to the European Union's rulebook and therefore de facto to the European Court of Justice. What many people in my position would like to see is a Canada plus free trade deal with the European Union, which would solve most of the issues that have been raised with these notices.
Would it get through Parliament though?
Well, it would be very likely to, because it would depend what the alternative was. If the alternative was leaving without any deal other than WTO terms, then a free trade deal would be very attractive to many members of Parliament, much more so than Chequers. Chequers probably would have a harder time getting through Parliament than a Canada-style trade deal.
But right now you've got a soft deal, Labour Party, effectively a soft Brexit, and you've got a wing within your own party that would go for that. I mean, I'm just wondering the degree to which you might see it as advantageous to precipitate a no-deal situation.
I think a free trade deal can be achieved, but that leaving on WTO terms is not as absurdly frightening as the Chancellor of the Exchequer thinks it may be.
Well, the CBI today said that people who talk about trading on WTO terms are not living in the real world. That's you, I suppose they're talking about.
The CBI's record is even worse than the Treasury's. The CBI thought we should join the ERM, it thought we should join the Euro, and it didn't want us to vote to leave.
One imagines they're representing their members' views
by their record. And the CBI has very few members. It's got lots of people beyond its strict membership who pay for it. You've got to be careful on how you describe membership of the CBI. But what the Chancellor was saying is from an organisation that predicted on a vote to leave, we faced a collapse in the economy of at least 3.6% and probably 6%, with an increase of unemployment between 500 and 800,000. The Treasury's Brexit panic means that you can no longer trust the Treasury's forecast, which is actually why George Osborne set up the Office of Budget Responsibility in the first place, because he said as Chancellor that we need independent forecasters who we can trust.
I want to go back to Sarah Wollaston in a moment, but just before I do, it's clear in your letter, and you've said it tonight, that you prefer the Canada-style package to so-called no deal or WTO
terms.
WTO terms. But if the choice is WTO terms or Chequers...
Oh, WTO terms are much better because we've actually left the European Union and we can flourish in that way. And if you look at what's come out today, you had a discussion in David Grossman's package about importing regulations. Those would be set by the British government, and the British government could deregulate and make things much easier for importers from all around the world, not just from the European Union, and that they haven't looked to in these papers today.
Sarah Wollaston, do you find any of that reassuring? I mean...
Not at all. I think it's really, really worrying. This is about far more than tariffs and trade deals. This is about complex networks that have been set up over 40 years, and it's about the non-tariff barriers as well. And I'm just thinking of the number of businesses I've visited in my constituency over the recess. Everything from language schools, for example, who are desperately worried about the impact of the loss of Erasmus, for example, and their partners are already moving to sort of partner up with businesses in the Republic of Ireland, and I'm also thinking about businesses, for example, who export and import from Europe, medium-sized businesses for whom this is going to cause catastrophic costs and complexity, particularly those who are dealing in high, sort of small volumes but of many different product lines. They are deeply worried about the impact of this, and it's about the non-tariff barriers in particular.
With your health committee hat on, and I don't know if you heard what Mike Thompson from the pharmaceutical industry said earlier.
Yes, I did.
Are you reassured in the way he is, or do you have greater concerns than he seemed?
Well, of course, he's not, I wouldn't say he's exactly completely reassured. What we're all welcoming is that the government is starting to properly plan for this, because again, without planning, if we crash out with no deal and no transition, and the government weren't planning for this properly, we would end up with critical shortages. But what I would say is that a lot of the things they're talking about extra warehousing, 6 weeks additional storage capacity, air freighting in of products that can't be stored because they have a very short shelf life, things like medical radioisotopes. All of that has a very significant cost attached.
Yes, indeed.
And those costs ultimately will be passed on to the NHS and to all of us as taxpayers.
Forgive me.
So we need to know exactly what the cost of this is.
Forgive me, we're nearly out of time. I'm sorry to interrupt. There's just one more question I want to ask before we leave this. There's clearly going to be a political fight when people come back from the recess. A lot of people talking about a possible leadership competition. Aaron Banks says he's joined the Conservative Party, seems to be wanting to bring lots of EU people in with him. Do you welcome that?
I would like to see the party back to having the 2 million members it used to have.
And if one of them is Aaron Banks.
But hold on, I think the party is entitled to be cautious about people joining from other parties. Sometimes it's a great success. I think Chris Grayling, the very distinguished Transport Secretary, was a member of the SDP many years ago, and sometimes that's fine. But the Conservative Party should always, and all parties should be cautious of entryism. It's not beneficial.
Jacob Rees-Mogg, Sarah Wollaston, thank you very much indeed. Thanks.